Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. I'm Nathanius, joined by Zombie Grub, as we move on to the lower bracket match for Group B here in WCS Spring Challenger. And what a surprise that Reynor is the player in the loser match.
It is indeed a surprise. There you go.
There you have it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Good PvP series. This series is actually already starting. Shout out to our admins and the players for just getting us into these games as fast as possible so that we don't have to sit here and make awkward small talk to kill time for you guys to complain about, because let's face it, none of us want that. With that being said, this match is ready to start. We are here on Automaton on the right side. He's a Protoss player. He's wearing red. He's Hellraiser.
Very fitting. In the bottom left, as the blue Zerg, he is Reynor.
You haven't seen Hellraiser, have you? I don't know if we had this conversation yet. I had it with Fear Dragon. I think he's a little too young for that, though.
Fear Dragon's too young, or Hellraiser's too young?
Fear Dragon.
Oh, okay.
Ruffy's got a pure soul, you know.
He does.
He's like Scooby-Doo from the first movie or whatever, right? Like, gotta be careful.
Yes. I think I've seen his picture on Wikipedia.
Okay.
Does that count?
You know what? Sure.
Okay.
Sure. It's probably past the subject in terms of grotesqueness that we can really get into a deep discussion on. So.
Well, now I'm just curious.
Well, his name makes me think about it, so I can't not. But it's you know, if you're not squeamish, it's a solid little series.
Okay.
Solid little series. Put that right next to Wishmaster. But ZvP. This group has been so much better than yesterday so far, by the way.
It has, and not just because it's not 40 minutes long, but actually the games have been very interesting.
Yeah.
The PvP alone has been like a
really
new experience, whole new world.
Not to hate on anyone, but yesterday's maps, everything just felt so weird. Like, everything just felt very, very weird.
Yes.
Very off. And Reynor, not to say that he played bad, but really got caught off guard, I'd say. Like, felt very bamboozled by the proxy 3-racks from Marine Lord. And then not able to stay on top of his defense while getting battlecruiser rushed, which I guess is something that doesn't happen that often, so he probably wasn't as ready for it.
Yeah, that was a weird experience. He did tweet out, admitted that being proxied again, the potential being proxied again, really threw him off. But then on top of that, the battlecruisers probably happening more than one time was probably also something that threw you off. Because I think for the most part, Zergs have figured it out, especially when, considering it was nerfed from its height as the battlecruiser rush goes. But if you're already thrown off and you're continuing to be thrown off and you're going to make those weird things, those weird mistakes, like running all your banelings in without lings and getting them all massacred by a Marine army. We're in a whole different matchup, and Reynor, I mean, luckily, I guess, Protoss doesn't have that quick of a way to kill a Zerg. Well, actually I say that, but there is a cannon rush, and Hellraiser is capable of doing those pesky cannon rushes. Well, clearly not this game. But it's more about the mid-game, if it gets all in the mid-game and that feels salty, maybe he gets thrown off there, but yeah, you don't have that fear as early on, I would say. 9 times out of 10 in this matchup.
Yeah, I think going into this series, my initial impression is that Hellraiser should try to pull a Marine Lord and do something a little bit out of left field, because Reynor has that reputation now of being a very, very difficult player to beat in a macro game, right? Like, it's like going up against Cyril to a degree, where you don't want to just play a game where you both just play your best and do everything that you can, because Reynor is better than you, and he will destroy you if you do not do something a little bit cheeky, a little bit out of left field.
Agreed. And I think Hellraiser will do something at least a little bit more aggressive, but not off the back of the Stargate. Maybe something more around that third base, not actually probing that much. Yes, 2 Oracles. Reynor going the very safe path by slapping down a Roach Warren. I guess he will be going Roaches. No other Bailey Nest, no faster evolution chamber. As well known as he is for his Lings. Roaches are kind of the safe call.
He's committing to that. He's gonna try to cancel that building drone with his Oracle, since despite the fact that eggs have like infinite armor, Oracle's attacks are not affected by armor. Absolute hogwash, Zombie Grub. Look at that. This core Oracle terrorizing the mineral line.
I mean, I kind of feel bad for the Oracle. It's like really not doing a whole lot.
Yeah,
Oh, but this one gets promoted later on. Ooh, if it lives. Okay, 3 drones.
If someone gave me like a supercharged microwave gun, that's what being an Oracle is like. It doesn't matter what armor you have. When this much radiation hits you, you're cooking regardless. You know what I mean?
You know, they sold a drink in the 1920s that was a little bit of radiation just right in there.
Huh.
Slowly killed you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Nuka-Cola is not really my bag, but I can see it.
Yeah. We got Roach Speed immediately and an Evolution Chamber, but much more interesting is Hellraiser slapping down that Robotics Bay. Yeah, it's really, Colossus are really coming back in. I don't mind them.
Yeah, I like seeing it. I like seeing it.
At one point, they were definitely, okay, well, these Adepts are going to go down. I mean, it's going to cost a lot of the Lings.
If they just bunched a little bit better at blocking that surround the Lings got, then I think all of them are alive, but that's awkward. That's unfortunate. So some Roaches are coming out, not a crazy amount. We've got +1 range attack. Roach Speed is on the way. Third Nexus about to pop. That Colossus that we talked about is coming in. And unlike our PvZ yesterday that we ended on, that was absolutely insane. We're getting Colossus range. Colossus range is being researched.
Yeah. Okay,
the world is returning to normal.
Yeah, Diska, he played one, macro series with Colossus, and then I wasn't surprised to see him go for that weird attack. Seems to be something that he always throws in his PvZs. But Hellraiser, I don't know if he has the same build there, so it's going to be more macro-oriented. Something that Reynor's going to want to scout. This might be Hellraiser's recent trend. This might be something that a lot of Zergs are like, oh yeah, this guy does this thing a lot of the time, but you want to get that confirmation. The Overseer is definitely going to get the confirmation, even if the Phoenix is on top of it. Takes a long time to kill. There you go, sees the researching Robotics Bay, so you can figure out it's Colossus from there. And we'll plan accordingly. So he was going for Roach Baneling, and perhaps potentially even some Overlord drops with the Overlord speed, but is he going to continue doing that? He's going to slap down a Spire. What is his choice? I mean, so far they both scouted everything here, and Soda's sticking with droning and producing the same units.
Hey, you got to expect him to get a Spire, right? Like, if the Colossus count gets really high, it becomes a problem. Not that Protoss players go for crazy amounts of Colossus, because it's like you want to force out a dedicated response, but he's already going back into Immortals because he wants to make sure that he has a solid backbone against Roaches if they do try to collapse on top of this army. So I was kind of bringing up the old days, and I'll do it again. Like in the old days, you could like Baneling bomb. I think it's not nearly as good nowadays though. But there is that option because we don't see a Spire, but then the Infestation Pit has me wondering if he might just shoot up the hive for those abducts. Yeah, Vipers are good here. You say that, and we actually did have a bit of that yesterday, right? Not necessarily to like kill Colossus, but we had some Bane Rain. It happened on this map.
It was a good shot, yeah, and then they
got all the sentries and I Templar.
Yeah, the Zerg didn't follow up. That's right.
The follow-up wasn't there. See, I think it was just a case of TLO being too creative, but he's like, I'm going to do 11 things at once. None of them will be dedicated enough to win the game, but...
Yeah. I mean, Hellraiser is... I mean, he's scouting, right? So this fourth base isn't the craziest thing, but it's really fast, and you are going to have potentially a vulnerable army, a lot of sentries. They miss their force fields, they're going to broken. Suddenly you could be in trouble with Colossus. Go down pretty easily once they're actually jumped upon. And if Reynor had been maxed out, maybe he could have tried doing that, coming in from multiple angles, right? But he's not maxing out. He is getting a decent army, but the goal is to get to that hive to deal with the Colossus very easily. So the counter goal, right, for Hellraiser is to get a couple feedbacks in there. So the Templar Archives is on the way. Of course, Storm as well, so you just have multiple ways to splash your opponent. But that's going to be a little ways off. And it might come out actually really nicely with the Viper Abducts, to be honest, because the Hive has to finish and Vipers have made.
Yep.
Energy has to be gained.
+1 melee going to finish up as well, so a lot of Lings to support this. I'm wondering how many he will actually keep as Lings. It's a low-tech type of composition, and I'm wondering, I guess, his strategy is to kind of just hope that he comes and attacks him out on Creeper. He can get him in the open.
Yeah, and we are on Automaton. These High Templars are kind of like fake. Like I would say those have Storm, right? When I see 4 High Templars, behind an army. But
yeah, with the energy, you're like, that is a do not attack sign.
But that's not scaring Reynor as he comes in from multiple angles. Let's get 270 surrounded. The Banelings are actually going to jump on top of the sentries, the Colossus, everything. And everything will fall except maybe those Blink Stalkers, which were able to escape. But that was a disaster for Hellraiser.
We had this conversation yesterday. The boldness, the braveness to just push in with all those High Templar there, just knowing that he doesn't have Storm. And a Stasis Trap is going to catch a few units, but this 4th base destroyed, and everything for Hellraiser just completely collapses in front of his eyes.
That's game. You know, I saw Hellraiser move out in the middle of the map and thought that's got to be a fake. It's one of the worst places to be against a Zerg, and he did not have Storm, absolutely. But even with Storm, that was such a good surround. There were so many Banelings from at least 2 different angles. You got to figure that this was supposed to be something that he was supposed to be able to retreat from, you know, back up the ramp, and just wasn't capable of doing so.
I think you hit the nail on the head. This map, that middle area, getting caught there is so bad. You cannot just go hang out in the center of Automaton. Players have died so many times attempting to do this, and Reynor's just flooding out units. A torrent of Zerglings and Banelings hit that base, and GG is called. Reynor takes game number 1 against Hellraiser in a very dominant fashion, and oof, ouch, owie, moving out without the Storm too. Yeah.
Deadly combination. You know, the Banelings, so many of them, like it must have been 30, 40, getting multiple angles of attack, but then even Corrosive Bios coming down to blanket, even predict the force fields, because that's what you're still depending a lot on. It just was always going to be difficult to play perfectly there. You would need like a donut of force fields and then another donut once the Corrosive Bios dealt with that. So
did you not have breakfast, Zombie Grub?
Donut. No, I actually don't even like donuts. But I do love force-filled donuts.
Yeah, those are nice.
Those are nice. But this was just like
I don't even think that like gif of the dude using the controller to make the sickest and most gnarly force fields of all time, I don't even think that would have saved him there.
Exactly.
Really well done by Reynor. And it's just so many units. So many units.
So many.
Stepping out into the middle of Automaton is a very dangerous place to be, ladies and gentlemen. Do not go there. Unless you have a lot, you need a lot.
Yeah, I think what happened was that he's trying to bully the Zerg a little bit and be like, oh, make less drones or don't go to Greater Spire quite yet or something like that. And then he saw Reynor actually retreating, because that's what we were even focusing on, right? The Observer was focusing on 2 halves of the army on top and on the ramp. So it looks like he was bullying back Reynor to a choke. And then instead, Reynor pounces on him and comes from the right side as well with roaches that had just kind of been forgotten about. Or maneuvered around. So I think he got kind of baited. I think he was intending to not go for the attack. And if he was intending to go for the attack, well, now he knows not to do that again.
Yeah. I think a part of it comes down to as well, he was attacking the creep tumors. Like, he was clearing a little bit of it on his way there, which is also just ringing the bell. It's like, hey, I'm in the middle of the map.
Yeah.
Get me. I'm just cleaning up a little bit of this before I get to your base, and please surround me and kill me. It'll be very easy, no problem. Which is what happened. So next map will be Kairos Junction. We are counting down into it. Cruising along here.
Yes, very quick. But with Reynor, I kind of expected that. With Marine Lord, I actually kind of expected that too. At least 1-3 racks, because TV's right. But some pretty cool matches even after that. And we continue to have swift victories for Reynor, I guess. As I think the second one might look pretty close. Reynor with his Baneling style, which he kind of maneuvered into after seeing what his opponent was doing, is the style we know him best for. His surrounds, his ability to get on that map, which usually causes some devastating losses, as we saw in that last game. So Hellraiser is going to be the one charged with mixing things up, trying different style. Perhaps he does go back to just going for the aggressive, perhaps 2 bases. In the top left, as that red Protoss, it is Hellraiser.
He faces off against our blue Zerg in the southeast, leading the series 1-0. He is Reynor.
Gas pool first.
Ooh.
Obviously, it's going to be scouted. This could be... I mean, he could just be one of mixing things up and wanting Hellraiser to respond to him. I gotta figure that most Zergs are a little paranoid of Hellraiser's ability to cannon rush as well, though. Not that that's happening here, but I think if we watch the Overlord, yeah, Reynor is not like sending it outright. He is very much so like, okay, is the second probe coming? Cannons, what's going on here? But it is just that standard gateway opener. So Hellraiser will scout the pool and then try and scout again. But we'll miss this third hatch at least for a little while.
Yeah. And this probe's just here to be annoying. Not actually bringing any sort of cannon rush or anything like you were saying. And we'll just have to see. I wonder if this ends up coming back to bite Reynor, because it had a pretty big impact on his series against Marine Lord. Was just like this hesitation and this caution towards the aggression that he thought could come up again. And it's not unfair to suggest it, right? Because, I mean, Reynor's definitely the favorite, was the favorite to take this group in first place. And he kind of has that target on his back right now as everybody's watching him and Cyril to lead the way. But I feel like this cautious play, he's kind of been, it's been a bit of a rough spot for him because he gave up economic advantages against Marine Lord, and he is doing it against Hellraiser here, even though Hellraiser is not cheesing, but you have to respect it, because if you don't, well, he did die to the 3 racks in the game that he went hatch first, right? So
yeah. So the probe got a pretty nice scout. It came back in and saw drones being, moved. So unless that was like really, really smart play by Reynor to like hide Lings within or something and transfer drones, he figures there's more drones. Third hatchery is coming down at his macro, not a huge Ling flood. And Hellraiser called that. He figured it out. He did not add on like a second gateway quickly. He didn't go Cybernetics or then Nexus. It's actually been okay. 4 Lings do, 6 Lings actually do get into the natural, I guess, as long as it's open, right? And while Stalker will eventually clean this up with the help of some probes, they could grab 1 or maybe 2 probes and additional scouting as well, in case the Overlord didn't do the job. See that Robo?
Gets 4!
Ow.
Oof.
Ooh,
Oh
5.
my
Oh,
god.
no. That's not how that was supposed to go down.
No, that's actually really, really bad. 5 probes killed by a handful of Lings. Considering that Hellraiser is up about 4 workers now, that lets this next wave of drones push it way closer. Wow, imagine if he's had 5 more workers at the moment. Goodness. That's like all the saturation on the gases in the main. Couple more workers down at the natural.
So Reynor got that full scout on the Robo, but the Robo, I mean, it has a lot of openers to it. I mean, there's a couple of harassment-based openers, just kind of letting that Warp Prism control the map a little bit. Obviously, you can go into, there was a Twilight Council as well, the Archon drop, but there wasn't. So what is Reynor figuring this to be? And we see all the gateways come down. It's going to be a total of 4. So enough to do some harassment with an Immortal, especially if Reynor were to do an early Roach Warren for defense. You can actually just pick those roaches off and then warp in, whatever you would like. But it's going to be Lings, but just Lings, right? And this is where a couple of Zealots, or even, well, depending on how many Lings, I suppose. The point is some Zealots, and suddenly the Lings aren't quite enough. Here comes the Balinus now. The Warp Prisms on the edge of creep. There is the warp in of a couple of Zealots, exactly. But it is going to take some time, because this is actually a very scary army. Even with like just Lings, you would think eventually production would clean this up.
Let's see what he can get done. Shows up at that base. The Zerglings are there, but as you said, waiting for another round of them to come out. Jumping on top of just the Lings that he has right now is going to be really hard to make work. The Queens are over here trying to focus fire down the Warp Prism, getting it very low to orange health. Does pick off the Warp Prism, and the Queens trying to cover for each other, pulling back. The recall goes down, but absolutely smacked is this attack from Hellraiser. And Reynor's like, that's it? That's all you got, bruh?
Yeah, that was a bit of a disaster there. I mean, I feel like that attack, it only really takes advantage of the greedier Zergs, first of all. But then even if it's like a no-go zone, they're like, okay, no, he has Lings, he has Queens. He can still pick up and try and maneuver somewhere else. Put the Zealots up against a wall type deal, and instead he loses the Warp Prism, loses a good chunk of army, and now is going to have the reverse situation happen, where Reynor might control him, stop him from ever getting a third base, or if that's even his plan. Charge +1 is on the way with a lot of gateways. Another Warp Prism was made pretty immediately, so he will still have some form of harassment, but
getting the third base here feels impossible now for Hellraiser. He is so very stuck, and I mean, I guess the goal is that the Prism pulls these units back because he's able to get some work done. Charge is not yet ready. It's close. +1 attack is going to be a little ways off. So the Lings aren't coming back.
I wonder I feel like Hellraiser still wants that third Nexus eventually, but he's getting all of his tech, all of his production beforehand. So I am wondering. Reynor obviously is very intently paying attention to the third base. He has Ling on well, the most obvious one anyways. And once see if a probe is even being sent down there, and if Hellraiser is going to go for a huge attack and actually just, you know, third be damned, he probably still want to try and keep up appearances at the very least, like send a probe over. Be like, oh no, you stopped it.
Oh no, you canceled my third that I definitely wanted, and it was totally not baiting with.
Yeah, but
Artosis pylon. Salivating.
It's such a late, you know, this game is almost 7 minutes long, so Overlord speed is done, something that Reynor intentionally went into, wanted to know exactly what he was up against, and that easily gets a scout on how much production there is. Now he sees the army actually moving out, so this will be the time that he has to build those Banelings. It's mostly going to be charge lots, right? Maybe another Archon could be morphed in, but mostly charge lots, and he's got to have some very good control here, some splits on the Zealots to actually make this work.
Yep, which goes to reposition the Spine Crawler to defend the natural expansion instead of just this third, but another round of Warpins is going to hit. There's the next Archon morphing behind, and this is a lot of Zealots. Let's see what the Banelings can get done. They crash into the front line immediately, take out a good chunk of them. Only a handful of Zealots, but now the next weapon in the back is going to come up. There's a lot of Queens to support this. Transfuses going down. Just trying to stall as long as possible. Since there is no third for the Protoss, it is just a matter of time for our Italian Zerg. And gonna come up. He does smack down the Spine Crawler, but the first Archon's gonna die. Observer takes a little bit of damage. More Banelings are ready to rock and roll. There's a single sentry, but Guardian Shield's all it's gonna be able to do and then immediately die.
Well, like, Hellraiser's trying his best to micro here, but he's up against literally a wall of Queens. And every time he thinks, like, you know what, maybe they don't have enough Lings, that's when Reynor shows that he still has, like, 40 Lings that are even maybe thinking of getting the wraparound. Now, those Zealots actually soak up all of the Banelings. And we're still on, like, 7 Zealots, 3 Archons. These Lings going up against a literal wall.
Nice wall, yeah.
That
actually,
is nice.
It's a pretty good body block there, but there may just still be too much for Reynor. Yeah. 3 Immortals is very powerful, right? Next wave of Zealots is going to get warped in behind this as the Hydras start to come out. That's where this tips the scales because the Zealots lose that engage potential. GG, good luck is called, and Reynor is going to eliminate Hellraiser to advance onto the decider for Group B here in our WCS Challenger Europe edition. Well done. I think very expected. Reynor's wasn't supposed to be in the loser match, right?
No, he wasn't. I'm thinking Hellraiser was really hopeful for PvT.
Yeah.
But I think actually he was probably hoping he'd win the PvP, right? That's the best matchup.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
But obviously he'd have an extra life if it was the winner's match. But anyways, the result is in, and Hellraiser is going to be the first to fall out of this group, which, I mean, that might have been the safe call. But again, there was that weirdness. Reynor's in the losers bracket.
Yeah, it's such a weird group now. In my mind, it's got to be Marine Lord and Reynor just because of the way that Marine Lord made it work before.
We'll see.
I believe in him. Although
Showtime.
I do, yeah. It basically just comes down to how overpowered you think Protoss is versus Terran for Marine Lord's chances of getting out of this group. But here is the group as it stands thus far. Marine Lord leading the pack with that win over Reynor that he had. Coming up next is going to be Marine Lord versus Showtime. And I hope he's got some fun TVP strategies. Hopefully learning from some of his Korean counterparts. There have been a lot of interesting TVPs lately over in the GSL and Super Tournament, but that's what we've got coming up next. It's going to be the winner's match. We got Marine Lord versus Showtime. We'll be right back. You're watching the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series.